Hi, I'm Ed Breniger. We're living in a time of real transition, and that transition is happening to us on all levels and in many, many different ways. And one of the ways that I see this transition taking place is in the world of leadership. And so, in these next few minutes, I would like to talk with you about the question, what is leadership, and whether I am a leader. I I came to this many years ago because I kept asking people, "Are you a leader?" And they said, "Oh, don't ask me that." And I would say, "Why don't you want to be considered a leader? I mean, don't you want to be a person who has influence in the world?" And they would hem and haw and I'd say, "Don't call me a leader." And I really had to dig with people to find out what was it that they were resisting by being called that. And what I discovered was that they saw that leadership was about a person of influence who ran an organization and who had a target on their back. And some people like that target. They find it um, a motivator for their own performance. Some people like to be in charge because it gives them a place of not just influence, but also of impact, a place to serve and to create and to accomplish things. So leadership has many, many different connotations. And so it's difficult oftentimes to say, well, what is a leader or what is leadership? And are they the same? Do we see that leadership is the same thing as being a leader? And I am not so sure that that's the case. Because leadership in many respects, the word represents a category that exists within the way we understand the modern world. And in that way, we will talk about leadership as a role or maybe a title within an organization or a community. So we see the mayor of a city as the leader, as a leader, or representing the leadership of the city. Or we see the principal of a school, or the owner of a business, or the executive director of a nonprofit organization as the leader of the organization, representing the leadership of the organization to their stakeholders and their constituents. So we see leadership primarily through the lens of organizational structure. It's a role and a title that, and this is how we have come to be taught how to understand what leadership is. And so when I would ask people, are you a leader? It is really natural for them to say, no, don't talk to me like that. Don't give me that name. I don't want to be considered a leader, because if you do, then you're asking me to accept the target on my back. You're asking me to accept the responsibility which I do not want to have. And that's pretty sad in many respects, because there are many people who have the capacity to lead an organization but refuse to do so because that there's a set of consequences that come with that are unpleasant. And so this was a question that bothered me, and it caused me to spend a lot of time reflecting on not just what leadership is within an organization, but more importantly, what is it that we need from leaders in society? And as I thought about this, it it occurred to me that we don't have very good measures for what leadership is. I mean, we have measures, we measure all kinds of things all the time. You can look at whether a business has made money over the last year, or whether their products are the leaders of the industry. Now, those are all quantitative measures, and I'm not saying that they're not valuable at some level, but I am also saying that they do not represent what leadership really means. For leadership is a quality, it's not a quantity. It's a quality that is exhibited through the life and the work and the thoughts and the actions of a person. And that quality is found not in just being able to make a decision, which causes some action to be taken within a business or organization so that some benefit or some success comes. The quality also has something to do with the quality of the organization as a place where people come to work and give of themselves. So in some respects, I'm looking at leadership not from the top down through an organization, but rather what leadership needs to be from the bottom up, from the very ground of an organization all the way up to the CEO or the mayor or the president or the owner. And if we look at leadership in this way, from the ground up, then we're looking at it as something like a tree. And so what we want to understand about leadership is partly its roots, the ground that it stands in, it grows in, the trunk that rises up, the branches that splay out from that trunk. If we see leadership as a tree in more of an organic way, then what we want to know is what constitutes the roots of leadership in an organization. And I think there are three things, maybe four, but let's talk about three of them. I think the first root of leadership in an organization are people. I have a definition of leadership which I think may be different than what you're used to hearing, because I don't principally see leadership as a role or a title in an organization. Instead, I see leadership as a function of how we as individuals, as human beings, perform in our lives. And so my definition of leadership is all leadership begins with personal initiative to create impact that makes a difference that matters. So if that is the definition of leadership, let's just take this as the argument that we're trying to prove, and we apply that to this tree, then leadership becomes how the tree is rooted in the ground. And leadership is not the crown of the tree, the leaves and the outside of the tree, but leadership is that which is underground. It's the roots sunk deep into the ground, out of which the nourishment for the tree, the nourishment for the company is found. And if all those roots are people, all those people taking personal initiative to create impact that makes a difference that matters, then the tree of leadership in an organization will be strong. But what I have found is that in many cases, those roots don't exist, or they exist, but they're undernourished. I have used the terminology that most organizations that I have seen are leadership starved because they have never developed the leadership of the people who constitutes the roots of the tree. Now that's one part of the root system. Another part of that root system is the values of the company or the values of the tree. And those values are represented by the relationships, which is the third thing, of the people. So if you understand the root system of a tree, it's not one root, it's many different roots intermingled, interconnected, networked together, which causes this tree to be strong. And so you have people, you have relationships, and you have values, which are the nourishment for the relationships, for leadership in an organization. What I have discovered in my years of working with leaders and working with organizations is that where there is some semblance of a understanding of the values of the company, there is an opportunity for more people to participate in the leadership of the company because they can act out of an appreciation or a loyalty to those values so that their performance has an impact that makes a difference. I see this as I travel and I talk to people, and I talk to people all the time. And one of the things that I have come to notice, and I think it's one of the core shall I say, core strengths of leadership in an organization is what I call the persistent residual culture of relationships. And this culture of relationships persists because it resides in the values that join people together in commitment and loyalty and love for that organization. I don't think people see it or they have acknowledged it. What I find is that so much of what is written about organizations is very top-down oriented. I've read a number of things on the culture of businesses, and it's all about how the CEO is the driver of culture or the creator of culture. And what I have seen by simply observing what happens in a business or an organization is that that culture is always there. The culture is there, and the smart leader of the organization, the smart CEO, the smart owner, the smart executive, the smart president goes and joins that culture, and then with wisdom identifies the strengths of that culture and builds upon them and invites the people to join him or her in developing that culture as the strength of the company. That's what I've seen. And where I've seen it happen, it is a transformational experience. So what is leadership? Leadership is the individual person in an organization taking personal initiative to create impact. That is what leadership is. And so the person who is in the role of leader at the top of that organizational pyramid, role changes when we now perceive leadership as a function of human work. And what their role becomes, along with everything else they do, is the facilitator of leadership throughout the company. The facilitator of leadership throughout the community. And so if you're a mayor or if you're a governor, the key to your performance as a leader is not, are you going to make your budget? Are you going to make the trains run on time? Or the key will be, how can we develop our people to become persons of impact for the benefit of the other people in our community? And we do that by recognizing that there is a persistent, residual culture of relationships born out of a shared sense of purpose, of shared values, and a shared understanding of what does it mean for this community or this organization or this department to have an impact in the world. In the next video, I'm going to talk about impact because it is a key word, a key concept for understanding why leadership in the 21st century is so different than what it was in the previous centuries. And I look forward to talking with you about this, and I hope this will be a beneficial time for you as you reflect on what leadership is. To know more, visit my website, edbreniger.com, and you may also find things that I have written there and also some books that I have written at amazon.com/author/edbreniger. And I hope you will find encouragement and nourishment so that you too may be a leader who is a person of impact. Thank you very much. Goodbye.